Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new here. My name is Jen and I moved from South Africa to England in 1999 and I moved from England to New Zealand in 2011. So I've emigrated twice. I have a number of videos on my channel about immigration that you might find helpful. I will link the playlist over here. As you can see from the title, today's video is going to be about 5 things that I'm glad we did when we emigrated. And the first thing is I'm glad we chose New Zealand, and I guess by this I mean I'm glad that we did our research. When we moved from South Africa to England, we didn't really do any research. We kind of felt like we knew what England was about. Everyone was doing it. All of our friends our ages were kind of leaving South Africa, and most were going to England because it was somewhat easier to get either a working holiday visa or an ancestry visa. We went over on an ancestry visa, and so we just kind of did it because it was the done thing and we didn't do much research. As you can tell, it ended up not being the place for us and we didn't want to live the rest of our lives there, and we ended up moving to New Zealand. So when we decided to leave England, we did so much thinking, planning, researching, and I'm so glad we decided on New Zealand because it is just the perfect fit for us. At one point we had decided to move to Australia, and at another point we had decided to move to Canada. And just thinking more about those countries and thinking about what Canada, Australia and New Zealand had to offer, because it was kind of between those three for us, and what we wanted our lives to look like and what we wanted out of life, we obviously ended up picking New Zealand and could not be happier. So I guess my tip for you would be intentional about what you want from your life. Don't think of like a place you've been on holiday and think, oh, it was so relaxing to just lie in a hammock every day and enjoy the beach. If that's not how you would actually live your life, think about the jobs you would do, think about the kind of social interaction you like, the kind of opportunities and infrastructure that is important to you, and then try and find a place that suits that. I have a Facebook group called Moving to New Zealand. I will link it down below, and it's a group for anyone who's planning on moving here to kind of chat amongst each other and share ideas and tips and information. There are over 7,000 members there, and I can kind of tell who is moving to New Zealand because they want to live in New Zealand and who is moving to New Zealand because they want to move away from where they are, and kind of anywhere will do. And my advice is pick a place that's going to really suit you. Emigrating is so expensive, it is so stressful, it is time consuming, it takes a toll on your relationships, and you want to end up in the right place for you. Do your research, know yourself, know what you want out of life, and hopefully you will end up saying, I'm glad that we chose New Zealand, or wherever you end up choosing. The second thing that I'm glad we did when we moved to New Zealand is more of a practical thing, and it's I'm glad that we actually went and lodged our application in person. We lived in Lancashire and New Zealand House was in London, and we could have couriered our application. We applied for residency, by the way, and we could have couriered it down and kind of waited to hear back, but I didn't want to take any risks with there being like a postal strike or roads closed or whatever bad luck could have befallen us, and we chose to just get in the car, drive down, go into New Zealand House and lodge it in person. We were there as a family of 4, all of our applications were together, and the case officer took it from us, made whatever copies he needed to, looked through everything, told us everything was okay, and then sent us on our way. And 3 months later we got our visas. And I'm so glad we did that, because if I'd posted it off, I would then be wondering, was everything okay? Are we still waiting to hear because they're busy processing it, or are we still waiting to hear because they've lost our file or whatever? Like, it just was such peace of mind to us to be able to be there in person and lodge our application and know that it had been checked over, there was nothing we'd forgotten, there was nothing we still needed to do, and then we could just kind of sit back and wait for it to be processed. I'm not saying this is the right thing for everybody to do, but I'm really glad that we did it. The next thing that I'm glad we did when we emigrated the second time is that we brought everything with us. We had a 20-foot container and we shipped pretty much everything we owned. And I'm so glad that we did that, because when you are starting a new life in a new country, there is so much to deal with and to take care of. And I'm glad that like repopulating a household with furniture and stuff wasn't one of those things that I had to deal with. It sucked having to wait 12 weeks for our container, but it was so worth it. We actually sent it about 6 weeks before we left England, so we had about 6 weeks there where we were just camping out and, you know, sleeping on things like mattresses that we weren't going to take with us and just waiting to go. And then once we moved here, we had about 6 weeks before our container arrived, and luckily we were lent all of the things that we needed, like microwave, table, chairs, mattresses, things like that. People were so kind to us, people that we didn't even know. But the day that our container arrived is quite literally one of the best days of my life. I was so happy, and it made such a difference to settling in for the kids as well, to have their own stuff. And it was just the right decision for us. It worked out so much cheaper than having to rebuy everything as well, so I'm really glad that we shipped everything with us. We didn't do it when we moved from South Africa to England, and even then it was kind of annoying having to like rebuy things that I had and had sold or given away before we left South Africa. I was having to repurchase those things when I already had those things, so I kind of wished we'd shipped everything over then. The fourth thing that I'm glad that I did when we moved from England to New Zealand is I created what I call a clothing bank. We had so much time before we came. Our process took about 2 years from making the decision and in fact applying for the job. My husband was in the police at the time. It's like a whole long thing. I will actually link my blog down below with the label Emigrating. If you go on there, I blogged the whole process. I wasn't doing videos then, but it's all kind of written out, and yeah, it took 2 years. And during that time I made this spreadsheet. I've got 2 kids, for those of you who don't know, and when we moved over our kids were 6 and 9. Anyway, I made this spreadsheet of what clothes they need, like jeans, short sleeve t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts, hoodies, whatever, and how many I felt would be like a good minimum, and then their different ages. And I would just shop the sales, because I knew that not only are things more expensive in New Zealand, but also that we'd be recovering financially from immigrating, and I wouldn't know where to buy things, and it would just be easier if I had our kids' clothes sorted. So I had the spreadsheet. I would shop all of the sales at Tesco, Asda, Matalan, Sainsbury's, all of these kind of like inexpensive clothing places, Primark, and I picked up clothes for next to nothing in ages up to age 13. I knew by then we would have recovered financially somewhat and be able to buy our kids clothes again, and my boys would probably have more of an opinion on what they wanted to wear, but this worked so well. I'm actually still pulling things out of the clothing bank, and I'm so glad that I did it. It was brilliant to not have to worry about that, to have my kids outgrowing things and be able to just pull out clothes from the clothing bank. Brand new, high quality pieces that they could just wear, and I didn't have to worry about fitting kids' clothing into the budget. So if you are moving from a country that is less expensive than New Zealand, I would highly recommend doing this. Obviously it's not going to work for everybody. It depends on your kids' ages, it depends on how opinionated they are on the things that they wear. My kids just didn't really mind when they were little. I would buy things that I knew that they would like, obviously, when I was shopping the sales, but I'm so glad that I did this. So I highly recommend doing this. I will link the blog posts about it down below. And then the fifth thing that I'm glad we did when we immigrated, which is probably one of the most important things, is we committed. It was a long, expensive, extremely stressful process. I ended up with severe adrenal fatigue and like lifelong health problems because of it. It was still worth it, but if we hadn't committed, it would have been easy to give up along the way, and I think it would have got in the way of our settling. It is so important to make that commitment. If you're choosing to do it, just go all in, commit to it, and it's so much easier to get through the tough times and to settle and to build your new life if you know this is it. Give it at least 2 years and then reevaluate. You don't have to stay in your new country for the rest of your life if it's not working out for you, but I would recommend committing initially. When you go, you are going to make it work. You don't get married saying, oh well, if it doesn't work out, we'll just get divorced. And it's the same with immigrating. You don't immigrate saying, oh well, if it doesn't work out, we'll just go back. Because if that is on the table as an option, I promise you it's going to be so much easier just to give up and to go back to where you were, and all of your reasons for leaving will still be there, and it would be easier just to kind of make a mistake of packing things in too early if you haven't committed. So I'm so glad that we committed, because like I said, it was super tough. It was really tough moving over and getting settled, and there were a lot of ups and downs along the way, and it's been so worth it. We are so happy here. We could not be happier. This is just paradise. I'm so grateful that we get to live here. I hope you found this video helpful, or at least interesting. It was fun for me to look back on that time in our lives moving over to New Zealand, which was 8.5 years ago. It was literally the best thing that we ever chose to do. Do check out my Moving to New Zealand Facebook group. I will link it down below, and I will link here to the playlist of all of my other videos on the topic of immigration or moving to New Zealand. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.